Hello friends, this is Praveen and today I am here to welcome you all in the second part of the crop production and management. In the first part of the crop production management, we have done about the what is the introduction, what are the crop plants, what are the two main kinds of crops. Then we learn about the methods of crop production and learned about the two methods of crop production, that are soil preparation and seed selection and sowing. If you have not watched that video until, I recommend you to watch it first. So let's get started with our today's video. Today we are going to learn about the next few important crop production and management steps. So first we are going to learn about the nutrient management. Once the crop is harvested, some of its nutrients are gone away or washed away. And when this is done with over lots of period of time, all this soil becomes barren or the nutrient deficient. What do you mean by the nutrient deficient? Nutrient deficient means that there are no more nutrients present in the soil, or there are less nutrient present in the soil. To avoid this, we have the two major steps. One is natural step and then is the artificial steps. So first let's move to the natural steps. The natural steps are again divided into four types. These are field farrow, crop rotation, intercropping, and mixed cropping. First, let's learn about the field farrow. Field farrow is nothing but leaving the land completely. If one in a one season a plant is grown, and in the next season it's completely nothing is grown inside it, so that when any plant or animal dies inside it, can decompose it and get back its new humus, so it replenished by itself when the field is left empty or no crop is planted in that. This is an important practice in our India, in which we learned about the two seasons, that is Kharif and Rabi seasons. What do people do? People only cultivate it in one season. Just like they cultivate it in a Rabi season, and they do not cultivate in the Kharif season, and they again cultivate in the Rabi season. Or it could be they are cultivating in the Kharif season, not in Rabi season, on Kharif season. Then most of the our people in the country want to get more crops. So what they do, they cultivate it in both seasons to see that the farmers have used a different method, that is called crop rotation. In this, one crop is grown in the one season and the another crop is grown in the another season. So means that if a rice is grown in one season, the another would be the cotton, and again the rice and again the cotton. This series goes on. So what happens in that, the nutrient of the crop A is replenished by the crop B, and the nutrient of the crop B is replenished by the crop A. Examples of these could be the groundnut and the leguminous plants. So groundnut takes lots of nitrogen, so it make the soil nitrogen deficient. And what happens that a leguminous plant contains the rhizobium in their nodules, which convert the atmospheric nitrogen into the soluble form to plants to take it. So it is simply adding out the 55 kgs of the nitrogen as compared to the 105 kgs of the leguminous plants. Now if this is done, now we have come intercropping. What happens in that, that is layers of the crops, and here is one layer of crop, there is another layer, that is crop 1, crop 2, crop 1, crop 2. So it happens like that way. So what will happen if there is one crop failure, it do not affect the second one. And what will happen if the nutrient required by the plant A would be replenished by the nutrient required by the plant B, and this would be also the vice versa. So in this is the helpful, because if one crop is wasted, or the one crop is the waste, so we can use the second crop. And sometimes what happens, the plants get the diseases, so it is only restricted to the one plant. So this is a row of one plant, it could only get in the row of one plant, not in the second rows or the third rows. So because there are two different rows in the plant, and these diseases are not resistant to that, so what will happen, it will not transport or transmit further. And the fourth way is the mixed cropping, in which the seeds of these are mixed together and grown in the same field. So two or more crops are grown in the same field. So what will happen is that the all the crops would grow in a simultaneously, or at a random. We do not know that which crop is growing here or here. It could be any crop. So what will happen in that, there close to each other, and so the again, as I told you, the nutrient of the A is replenished by the plant B, and the nutrient of the plant B is replenished by the plant A. So this is another useful plant. And as I in the intercropping, if the one crop is or the it is a failure of one crop, the another crop we can use it. So now let's move to the artificial methods. And if in the farmers in India have urgent, they have to grow the both crops, and they do not want that their crops or the seasons go wasted. So what they do is to use the manures or fertilizers. So let's first learn about the manures. Manures. What are manures? Manures are simply organic things that is obtained from the living organisms. There are two types of manures. One is a green manure and one is a animal manure. As the word from the green means we associate with the plants, and so the green manure means that a manure which is obtained from the plants, and animal manure, as it word said, it is obtained from the animals. So green manure is obtained from the plant parts, and the animal manure is obtained from the animal parts. And there is one more organic term called compact compost. What is a compost? Burning. We take the both of these manures or one of these manures and burn it, and we left it for some time, and we got a compost. This is very highly nutrient. This is rich in nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. Now, advantages of the manures. What are the different advantages of manures? First, it helps to make the humus more. It helps to increase the humus in the soil. So how does it increase the humus? It provides all type of nutrients to it. It is not a nutrition specific. What do I mean by nutrition specific? That it do not provide only one type of nutrition. It provides all type of nutrition. If a plant is died, a plant contains all its nutrients, but in the some in the major and some in the trans amounts. So what will happen? It contains all, but then it would be again added up to the soil. So when these plants take up all these nutrients from the soil and they grow and then again die, and then these all nutrients are mixed with again with the soil. So these are nutrients, just like same as the animal eats the plant, and plant take this nutrition from the soil, and the plant is eaten by the animal, or even another animal can eat the another animal, and so these all die to get mixed with the soil to create a humus. This makes the soil more porous and aerated. This also includes the water holding capacity of the soil, and this increases, as I told you, this increases the humus, and more plants can grow in that. So this is the not a nutrition specific. Now let's learn about the fertilizers. What are fertilizers? Fertilizers are the artificial things that are made in factories, that are no they provide only one type of nutrition. How they were used? Just like this is a plant, and they are grown in the soil which has some nutrient deficient. So what will the fertilizers are made like that way, that this plant needed the nitrogen for the maximum nitrogen for the growth. So they would earn only for nitrogen, or some more, and that only they only provide the maximum nutrients or the major nutrients the plant are required. So they are the not they are the nutrition specific, and these are made in the most common use fertilizers is NPK fertilizers, which stand for nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium fertilizers. Now, to learn about more about fertilizers, I am going to review the table. So let's move to the table. Now we are going to learn about some commonly used fertilizers. So first common used fertilizer is nitrogenous nitrogenous fertilizers. So these are nitrogen fertilizers. So what are these? These are nitrogen contain. So they contains nitrogen. So they are nitrogen containing fertilizers. Example, they are commonly used in. So they are these substances are made up of the different things. These are made from. They are used in urea. They are used in ammonium sulfate. They are used in here. Note that the word nitrogen is not coming, but they are used in ammonium sulfate also, and they are also used in ammonium nitrate, which is the most commonly used fertilizers in nowadays. So they provides the nitrogen to the crop. So the example is nitrogen, ammonium nitrate, and also there is one more commonly used is sodium sodium nitrate. And there is we learned about the NPK fertilizers, which is nitrogen that is phosphatic. Now we are going to learn about. So phosphatic fertilizers which provides are the rich in phosphorus. So it is phosphatic fertilizers which are rich in phosphorus. So these are rich in phosphorus. So these are rich in phosphorus. These are phosphorus containing fertilizers. Examples of these are calcium hydroxide, dioxide. Then we have is phosphorus. So let's first example is calcium dihydrogen. Here di means the two hydrogen. This is the calcium dihydrogen phosphate. So it is. And the next is ammonium phosphate. Just like we learn about the ammonium sulfate, ammonium, there is ammonium phosphate, ammonium nitrate. Ammonia is also useful for the plant's growth. So it is ammonium phosphate. Then there is one more commonly used fertilizers in our daily life is the ammonium hydrophosphate, which also contains the hydrogen in it, because hydrogen is also required by the plants for the growth. Hydrogen, this is phosphate. So these are the, now we are going to learn about the some more fertilizers, and these are we are what is the commercial name, means what is the commercial name, and there is a mineral nutrient, means what is the nutrient it contains, which is helpful for the plants. So first is the urea. Urea is the most common used fertilizers in our daily life. It is normally rich in nitrogen. So urea is used for the plants like groundnut, because groundnuts needs a lot of water. And the second type is the superphosphate of lime, means it is superphosphate of lime. So superphosphate of lime, it here comes the phosphate, so it is definitely rich in phosphate. And there is lime. We'll learn about the what is the lime water. Lime is the calcium carbonate, so it is also rich in calcium. Just like humans need the nutrients, plants also need the calcium. Now the third is diphosphate, diammonium phosphate, where the di I said again, it is used for the two ammonium phosphate, means the structure of this or the chemical formula of that contains the two ammonium, and its to increase its short form is DAP for short. Its short form is DAP for short, and it is rich in nitrogen, and phosphorus. Then the fourth the is used in the chemical industry or the fertilizer industry is the calcium ammonium nitrate. So It is calcium, ammonium, nitrate. So it is also called can for sure. Here C comes from the calcium, A comes from the ammonium, and the N comes from the nitrogen. As it is told, it is rich in calcium and nitrogen. So it is rich in calcium and nitrogen. So here is more terms called the biofertilizer. There is one more terms called biofertilizers. Biofertilizers are the microorganisms which bring about nutrients and enrichment to the soil by enhancing the availability of the nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus to the crops. We have talked a lot about the fertilizers and manures, but what are its differences? Now we are going to compare both these units, which is the manures and fertilizers. First, let's talk about the manures. Manures, as I told you, are nutrition. They provide all type of nutrition, and the nitrogen are nutrition specific. The manures are obtained from the natural things or they are organic things, and the fertilizers are inorganic things. And the manures aid in the humus, and the fertilizers do not aid in the humus. And excess use of the manures increases the humus, and but the excess use of fertilizers can penetrate through the soils and can also cause the air water pollution. Because there is below the water groundwater, and it could cause the water pollution. And there is the nutrient manures are uh, not that much of efficient to be absorbed with the water, and but the fertilizers are very absorbed and can be easily absorbed with the water, because the plant absorbs every nutrients which is dissolved in water. So the manure will require a lot of time, but a fertilizer doesn't take too much time. So fertilizers provide an excess growth. And so to understand, we have lots of talk about the fertilizers are best in the growth of plants compared to the manures, but let's try an experiment to conduct that. So you take a same amount of the uh, manures and fertilizers and the same grown or the same kind of plant and of the same kind of the size, and you put in a soil. Both of the plants put in the different soils, and in one plant you add the manures, and in second plant you add the fertilizers, and then water it regularly. You will notice that the plant with fertilizers grow the best. Okay, then the plant with the manure grow, but its height is, or it has grown the small in size. So now let's move to the next, that is the irrigation. Irrigation is an important part of the crop production and management. Most of in India, our country or our farmers depends on the rain. About 54% of the peoples in India depend completely on rain. 24 percentage of them is partially irrigated, and the remaining 18 percentage is fully irrigated. The depending on water or the rain is essential, is important, and where is it is a both of these are balanced. So why? Because the rain provides a fresh water to the crops, and the crops grow best in the fresh water. And but in the when the water or the rainfall is not uniform at every place, sometimes there is a drought and sometimes there is a flood. And these amount of nutrients these amount of rainfall is also not a uniform all across the field. Sometimes somewhere there is a high rain, somewhere it is a low rain. So depending on the rainfall is the somewhat good and somewhat bad. So people have used the different techniques to irrigate. They use the ponds, rivers, oceans to irrigate their fields. They sometimes build canals also. So we are going to learn about the irrigation in two parts. This is traditional ways and modern ways. In traditional ways, we most of these equipments use a well or a river, flowing river. Their examples of these are moat, chain pump, rahat, takli, etc. What happens in a rahat? So first let's learn about the mechanic of the rahat. Here is a wheel and here is a rod like structure which is attached to the a bowl. So when a bowl moves, it rotates the shaft and creating this whole wheel to rotate. And here is a small bucket tied up. So when this is moved, the bucket gets filled and then emptied it in the another channel and it flows to the whole the channels which has created to in the field. And rahat and the moat, the chain pump and the moat also work like that way, but it contains a fulcrum and a pulley lever like system. What happens here is a weight applied and here is a fulcrum here and here is a well here in which the bucket is pulled. And so when it is a heavy weight here and it is released, bucket full of water, it splashes and it irrigates the water. It irrigates the field. It is the in earlier ways this is a very cheaper way, but it is very time consuming or the labor consuming. So in modern ways, what we have done, the scientists have invented mainly two ways. These are very efficient and time saving and labor saving also. So what are these? These are sprinkler system and drip irrigation. So first let's learn about the sprinkler system. Sprinkler system contains a tube well in which the pump is applied to pull the pressure on the pumps, and there is this long like pipes in which a horizontal pipe is standing. And so what happens, due to the pressure the water enters this shaft, this pipe, and here are the two vertical openings from here and here which are opposite to each other. So what will happen, the water would come and flow out through it. So this should all irrigate this part of the world. So what have scientists done, they have created a rotating shaft. This is operated when it is a water it has a pressure. So when the process is done, so it irrigates it and rotates also. But this would only irrigate in a single like structure. So we know that point is used to disperse. So they applied a point like structure or something to disperse the water. This is the mechanics of the uh, sprinkler system. This is also not uniform because when the two intersections, this creates a diameter here, and the two intersections of the diameter creates a the water is irrigated there, irrigates more, and the outside irrigates lesser, and the water near the sprinkler systems irrigate lesser than compared to the outer areas. So scientists have invented a new and efficient way which is called drip irrigation, because the water of lot of way is wasted because it's thrown around, and not always the water enters to the root. So what the scientists have do, they have created long pipes, and smaller pipes are attached to the horizontal, vertical to the pipes. So what they would run across the plants, and every time when the person sees the root or the plant, it makes a hole inside the pipe, and when every time he sees, he would make a hole. And when the water is run through it, what would happen? Only the water is then the water would come out from the holes and it would directly irrigate it to the or goes through the uh, it would directly go through the roots of the plants. So this do not makes the wastage of water. And when there is a wastage of water, wastage of water, what would happen? It would create a water logging. What is the water logging? Water logging. So water logging is when the plant gets a lot of water near its root. Its plant's root could not breathe. Plant's root cannot breathe. So what would happen? The air is not available to the plants, and so nutrients cannot be absorbed efficiently. So the plants died. So we have talked about lot of the irrigation. What is the purpose of irrigation? Purpose of irrigation is that the water is required by the plants for to do the physiological activities like respiration, photosynthesis, etc. Because if there is no water, these activities would be not possible, and they would not produce oxygen and food, so we would not be able to survive. And this water is helping them to withstand the air currents. Hot air currents, what mean, the hot air currents move low and this dry up the plants. So when they have the water in that, they lose some of the water through the transpiration, making it cooler, and they use the accept of sap in the water. So what will happen to this is a plant, and so they requires a lot of energy to push the water upside. So what they do is the use of water. So water here, they lose it through the transpiration, which creates a low zone here and a high zone here. So the water moves upside down. So the water is an important in the acceptor stem, and the plant contains the 90 percentage of the water in their walls. So it is important for the plants to have water. Now after this had done, the some unwanted plants or the weeds has been grown in the field. Even in your gardens, you weed sometime to get these unwanted plants away. So these unwanted plants or weeds compete with a crop or the main crop to get the sunlight, water, nutrient, and everything what the plants need. So if we have the two peoples and we have to give to one person, the another would snatch. So we have to kill that person. So that is the weed here and that is the crop here. So how we can kill these weeds? We have the three types of some ways. These are physical, chemical, and biological. And the mostly common grown weed is the anthrax. So which is also useful for the people because they can use to as a flooder, or they are harmful for the plants, and some weeds are even poisonous for the animals. So these can be treated with these three types, which are physical, chemical, and biological things. First, physical. Physical is the manually removing all the weeds. They use the some equipments just like harrow, fennel, and hoe. What is happens in the small quantities, this is fine, but at the large quantity it is very difficult to weed all the weeds. So what they have to, they use the chemical things. They use the two types of chemicals, which is herbicide and weedicide. Herbicide is used to kill the natural vegetation of that particular area, and weedicide is to kill the all the weeds present in that. When these are used in excess, these are harmful for the crops. But if the weeds has been died, they mix with the soil, and then they create the humus for the plants. And these weedicides and herbicides should be um, sprayed with the mouth and hands covered, because they are also if, dangerous for our human beings also. So there is one more efficient way, because in the if we use in excess, the plant would get also the damaged. So what they do is a biological method, in which insects that are eating nutrition, if they only eat that weed are removed in the field. So what will they only eat up the uh, weeds. But there is one more problem. If there are lots of water, there are lots of insects, they would, and the weeds are finished, they would start eating the main crop, that is our crop. So to and there is the population would grow larger and larger. To decrease that, we only introduce the male insects to the field, which only irrigate them, and then we capture it back. So this is the way how does the weeding works. Now, protection of the crops. Sometimes we that stray animals or the insects also enter our crops. This makes a damage. Larger animals such as cows, buffaloes, dogs, like that way, can be scared away with using the scarecrow or even beating the drums for the birds and creating a fence around it. But what happens to the smaller insects? Smaller insects like locusts. Locusts are the group of the small insects which attack in the large groups and eats the leaves by destroy the crops by eating its leaves. So what the people do is spray them. There are three types of the chemicals to use to spray. These are insecticides, then pesticides, insecticides, and rodents. So these are the insects. These are used to kill the insects present in the crop. So what they do is they eat up the crop and creating a crop failure. So these also, as I mentioned you, these should be also prepared with a sprayed with a different sprayers. And because if our mouth is not covered, so what would happen, this would enter our respiratory system or cause many different problems. So there are the healthcare measures should be also take to note that our body do not get affected by this these pesticides, insecticides, etc. So friends, this was my part second, and I would upload the part third to learn more on about the crop protection and management. To get notified, subscribe to my channel, and at the last, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.